Right, good morning, everyone. My name is Aline Boblin from CAVA, Community and Voluntary Action in Solihull, and we're here today to talk about the Solihull Community Buildings Fund with the Heart of England Community Foundation. So thank you for joining us. So today we're going to ask you, at least at the very start, in terms of house rules, to mute your microphone just during the time of the presentation. If you could also introduce yourself, your organization, and any contact detail you want to share with the participant in the chat, that will be great. And we are recording this session. We will be sharing the CAVA and the Heart of England slides after this event. As I said, my name is Aline Boblin, and I must apologize, David, I wasn't sure you were joining. I have omitted your name here. My colleague, David Simpkins, is also here today, who's a funding and group development officer. And we have Zoe Sweeney from the Heart of England as well. So CAVA, as I think the majority of you here, maybe Paul, you're less familiar with the organization. We are the infrastructure organization in terms of support for the VCFSE in Warwickshire and Solihull. The charity has been established for over 15 years now, and we provide localized support in a number of areas in Warwickshire and Solihull. Each of our offices have a funding and group development officer and a volunteering coordinator, based, as you can see, in a number of areas to deliver support at the heart of the communities. So in terms of group development, we provide a range of support, and I'll detail that in the next slide. And in terms of volunteering specifically for Solihull, our support is providing through our brokerage system, where organizations can record their opportunities for volunteering, and where individuals who want to volunteer in the borough can also find roles that they can apply to. If anybody needs anything on that, please feel free to contact me. We also share volunteering opportunities through our newsletter. So in terms of group development, as a number of you on the session already know, we help organizations identify the best legal structure for their new initiative or for the growth or the change in their delivery. We also help organizations identify the legal frameworks they need to work in and the core responsibilities of trustees and directors, depending on whether an organization is a charity, a CIC, or a different model. We can help you properly prepare your business case to have more of an opportunity to get sponsorships from corporate organizations, as well as to obtain funding through funding body and grant allocating bodies. Obviously, governance and policies are very important, including making sure there are no conflicts of interest within organizations, and we can support you in terms of signposting to templates or casting an eye on what you have drafted. Sustainability of an organization is really important. So in terms of transitions of trustees or directors, or looking at alternative sources of funding, we can help you with that. And although we are not habilitated to write funding applications for an organization, once we have fully drafted your funding applications, we can help you and review those for you so that they pitch well to the questions requested. We can also help you identify new funding opportunities for either existing projects for their continuity or new projects. So if you have any questions on funding, please could you contact me first, and then we identify within our teams whether myself or David or other of our colleagues can support the element of group development and funding. We have actually worked quite hard at putting resources on our website, so I would really encourage you to go and have a good look there for ongoing information to help you, as you can see, on a range of areas. And should you find anything that you think is out of date, feel free to let us know. However, we aim to keep our information up to date. And specifically on group support, you will find a range of governance and examples already available, as well as information on regulations and legislation. A charity, a CIC, any type of organization, whether it's incorporated or not, that is employing individuals, has to follow for example, has to follow the legislation in the UK in terms of employment legislation. So that's the kind of things you need to bear in mind. So is insurance, and so are even the kind of contracts you get into when you obtain funding through organizations like the Heart of England, for example. We would also really encourage you to be a member of the charity that CAVA is. We are run by membership. That membership is completely free. And once you are a member, you can contribute to our Voice of the Sector surveys. You can be part of our AGMs, and also you can access a range of back office support services that are discounted or give you a free access, for example, of a half an hour with an HR professional or other elements as well. CAVA also offers a payroll service, which our members can access for free. Not for free, sorry, for a lower rate than other organizations. It would be great if you want to keep up to date with our events, if you register to follow us on Eventbrite, and if you subscribe to our newsletter. When I send you this presentation, you'll be able to click on the links, which will take you straight to that to those web pages. And the upcoming events we have after today, we have an in-person event on Tuesday next week. There's still time to join, and that is at the Three Trees to look at building resilient teams, supporting the well-being of our trustees, volunteers, our employees as well. It's an all-day session, and it's apparently a really experienced deliverer trainer who is with us all day. I'll be there myself. I'm not sure if David will be, but it should be quite a buoyant session. So if you have the opportunity, please join us. And we have 4 different webinars coming up in the next couple of 3 months. Introduction to networking next week. Financial and introduction to financial management. So we are repeating this specific session from earlier this year because quite a few people weren't able to join. So we're hoping that more of you will be able to join. And that's a really interesting session in terms of understanding your responsibilities to document your transactions, for example, but also looking at your planning. So it's not really about looking at what happened in the past as much as looking at where are you today, where is your cash flow going, and how you're going to document that in a pertinent fashion to meet compliance information with the Charity Commission or Companies House or other bodies. And finally, in September as well, we have a governance policy and procedures training session, which hopefully you can attend. And those 2 sessions, as well as the introduction to networking session tomorrow, are delivered by one of our collaborators from the Leicester organization. So that is all I wanted to share about CAVA. I'm going to stop sharing now, and if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we can hand over to Zoe. So if there are any questions, just let me know. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you, Aileen. Can you see, everyone see my screen there? The title, fabulous. Thank you so much.
Zoe.
Yes.
Right, okay, let me just go back a screen, sorry, because I can't see my slides. Right, okay. Okay, so thank you very much, Aileen, and thank you for joining us today for this presentation to learn all about the Solihull Community Buildings Fund. As Aileen mentioned, my name is Zoe Sweeney. I'm the Programme Manager over at Heart of England Community Foundation. For those of you that don't know anything about Heart of England Community Foundation, we are a registered charity and the leading independent grant-making foundation in the West Midlands and Warwickshire. And our vision is that everyone in the West Midlands and Warwickshire has equal access to opportunities, experience genuine well-being, and enjoys a healthy, happier and fairer and active life as part of their community. And how we do that is by working with donors and partners, corporate partners, local authorities, basically anybody who has a pot of funding that they would like to use to impact particular issues in the community. And we nurture that and obviously connect those to incredible causes that matter. So we help to unlock those resources to tackle local issues across the region and support the people and communities there. A little bit about the impact we've had so far. So obviously these slides don't include anything to do with the Inclusive Communities Fund that we've been working on. So obviously the numbers will go up dramatically over the next couple of years. But since 1995, we've awarded over £35 million to over 7,000 projects across the region. And last year alone, we awarded over 2.5 million and managed over 65 funds. And we've now got an endowment funds of over £20 million, which is obviously an amazing long-term legacy for the local communities in our region. So just to talk about the Solihull Community Buildings Fund, which is what you obviously hopefully all here to hear about today. Just to give you a bit of background with regards to the fund. So this is as part of the UK's government investment in the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Solihull Council would like to award a minimum of 5 capital grants to improve access to the use of independently owned community buildings in the borough. So obviously this can include a number of buildings, from youth centres, village halls, faith and school buildings, but basically community buildings that provide regular community access and use, or that there's an ambition to provide that from a particular building if they don't already. The fund aims to improve public access to community buildings in Solihull, particularly in areas where there is a scarcity of facilities such as community centres. So what is available? The fund is £250,000, and as I said, there's a minimum of 5 grants to be awarded. There's no maximum or minimum amount that you can apply for, but obviously during your application, you must be able to demonstrate value for money. Match funding is not required. The project will cover 100% of the costs. However, if match funding is required, then that basically needs to be in place now. The timelines on this fund are very, very tight, as you'll hear in a moment. So if you haven't already secured that additional funding that you may need, it's probably not going to be in time for you to make an application for this particular grant. But if you have got match funding, or if you know that you've got other funding coming in, or if you've got money in the bank already, obviously you need to show evidence of that prior to any award being made to you. Grants are available in the wards that you can see there: Chelmsley Wood, Elmdon, Linden, Alton, Solihull and Meriden. And those wards basically reflect the areas where it's been identified that there's a lack of accessible community buildings, or where there isn't investment already planned from UK SPF. Okay, so what will the fund fund? It will only fund capital expenditure on community buildings. So obviously there's a list of things there that obviously fall within that. So new construction, it may be that you're looking to add an extension to an existing building, conversion of buildings, converting a building to enable community use, renovation activity, which obviously could include refurbishment of an existing building or remodelling to improve access or capacity or use. Additional new facilities, so you may need some additional toilets, or may want to put a kitchen in to be able to expand the offer to the community that you serve, and some types of equipment such as storage containers or sensory equipment. However, this must have a shelf life of at least 5 years. And just to point out, one of the strict criteria for this is that your projects must be finished by the 28th of February next year. So that's all money spent and projects finished. So obviously when you're thinking about that with regards to timelines, applications are only open until the end of this month. So you're really looking at only 6 months in order to get your project started and finished within that time. What we cannot fund, obviously the purchase of land or the purchase of any buildings. They won't fund any capital works that solely improve the energy efficiency of buildings, such as windows, heating or solar panels, unless it impacts on the community access and use. Any overheads, running or maintenance costs. Can't fund any playgrounds or outdoor play equipment, any salary costs or consultant fees. It won't go towards the costs of any projects that have already been completed prior to the award. Can't repay any loans, and it can't be used towards any production of websites or promotional materials. Just a bit of additional information with regards to this particular fund. Obviously, there is supporting documents that you will need to provide as part of just your wider eligibility. If you're used to applying for grants, you'll be aware of that already. If you're not, as Aileen mentioned earlier, there's lots of governance documentations that you'll need as supporting documents to be able to apply for any grants as a charity or KIC or whatever you're set up as. There's lots of support available and information about that on the website, which I'll share a link with you shortly. But obviously the guys over at Warwickshire CAVA offer you lots of support with that capacity building and documentation. So please do take them up on that support if you're not sure what you need to have in place. But just some information that's specific to this particular fund. The monitoring from at the end of the grant is an automated form that will come out to you at the end of the grant time, which is obviously, as I've mentioned, the 28th of February. That's an automated form that will come out, which you'll need to include evidence in that, which will look like client feedback, pictures of the completed work, evidence of any marketing or promotional activities for the new facilities if you've done that sort of thing. We can provide a Word version of the questions within the monitoring for you that can be sent out to all successful applicants along with their grant agreements, but that will need to be back with us by the 21st of March at the latest. It's just standard end of grant monitoring if you're used to applying for grants. The specific supporting documents for this particular fund that you need to take special notice of is that to be eligible to apply, you have to provide proof of either a copy of the lease agreement or at least a minimum term, with at least a minimum term of 5 years is required, or confirmation of ownership, freehold ownership of the building or land that the work is going to take part on. The leaseholders will also require written permission from the landlord. Planning permission needs to be in place already. As I've said, quite strict timelines on this. So if you haven't already applied for planning, this is probably not going to be the particular funding pot for you. Obviously, any other consent that's required, including listing building consent, building regulations consent, and the whatever basically consent is required for the building must be granted beforehand, and evidence of that will need to be included within your application. You also need to provide any quotes for capital items over £300. And as I've already mentioned, you need to provide evidence that any of the match funding has already been secured for the project. As I've already mentioned, there is further eligibility checklists just to make sure that you are eligible to apply for grants in the first place. There's a link there which I'll share in the chat in the moment, just to the link on our webpage that gives you a lot more information about what eligibility criteria you need. But as I've said, reach out to Warwickshire CAVA if you need any support with that. But there is also a lot of information on our website to help you there. And that's it really. Has anyone got any questions or anything? Because obviously that's a lot of information I've just thrown at you very quickly, but please do let me know if you've got any questions about that. Stop sharing my screen.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Zoe.
I'll just add the link to the all information that I've just gone through with you is all on the website as well. So if you do need to have a read through any of that, it's there. And obviously you've got this recorded presentation as well. Yes, and we can send that information as well when I send you all the slides. David is the first one to have a question.
Yes, Zoe, just a clarification. When you say a minimum of 5 applications, is that only 5, or is it more? Can more than that 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 bids be put in? Yeah, no. Obviously, there's an ambition to fund a minimum of 5. So obviously, there's only 250,000. So if they get 5 really good applications for 50 grand each, then that's obviously what they would go with. But I imagine there'll be some smaller projects maybe.
There might be some that are larger than that. So there's an ambition to fund at least 5. Obviously, if they get in more than 5 and they're good, they'll hopefully share that £250,000 out as much as they can possibly share it.
Brill, thank you.
Zoe, I have a question as well. This element of saying 5 grants, does it mean that, do you know if it means that organizations should aim not to pitch for too much, because that could be a compromise? Or do you know if the panel would accept to, or would consider asking an organization to bring down what they're looking for to be able to fund 5 or 6 or 7 projects? Because it's, having announced that number of 5, I've actually never heard this before.
Yeah, it's not unusual, to be honest, but you know, they've got, I think it's the reason that it's in there is to obviously try and let groups know that they aim to do as much as they can with that money. But obviously, because this is construction based projects in the main, although obviously there are items and things that can be purchased to enhance the offer of the to bring in more community into a building. I think it's just there to say words to that effect. They didn't want to put a maximum or a minimum amount that people can apply for, because obviously it's construction work which can be costly. So I think it's just to say that, you know, they are looking to spread that 250,000, so maybe don't go in with a £200,000 application. But that said, you know, if it is a larger one that's, you know, getting closer to around the 100 mark, if it meets the priorities of the fund and you can show really good evidence of need and really good evidence of community impact, then there's no reason why you shouldn't put an application in for that at the end of the day. Because, as I say, there may only be the applications that look at smaller projects that need less money. So it's just a case of putting it in, but being reasonable, I would expect. But there would need to be, if I would imagine that if it's a larger amount that you're asking for, you're going to really need to show really good evidence of need and impact within the community, and it's really got to meet all of that criteria. And also, I think because of the strict timelines on this, obviously applications close on the 31st of July. And so realistically, funding isn't going to be with you until sort of end of summertime. You've really only got 6 months to get this project off the ground. So any over ambitious projects where they're going to be building entire buildings, probably not going to get finished by the 28th of February. So they're going to be ruled out anyway. So it's really looking at those smaller projects that are really going to be able to help you to open up your buildings to more people within the community than they can currently.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, actually, because if that building work needs to be completed so early as February, considering the timing from SMBC is in the winter,
yeah,
which makes it really difficult to do some work.
Yeah.
And thank you for the element in terms of, you know, reminding us of really emphasizing that this isn't about a building serving private organization.
No.
It's not about building serving only one type of delivery. It has to be, if you can, demonstrate that it's serving not just your immediate labeling, but actually a lot of different elements in your community, knit and natter groups, toddlers groups, just things that are really, really inclusive, where there's no risks of neurodiversity, people not being excluded because of noise or because of smells or because of, even potentially because of animals, but, you know, all those kind of things to really talk to your community and expand. So you may want to consider mentioning the campaigns you will be doing during that time as an organization, to emphasize the changes happening in your building work, thanks to your building work, to bring more people, to open additional rooms. So really be quite creative in documenting what you will do to make that project a success. And I know we have Paul from a specific church. I know there's a lot of evidence that talking to opening the services or your existing services already be inclusive of all people in the community. You know it is, but it's wording it in your application that will get that message across to your funders, because they don't know Solihull Lodge, they don't know the church in Chesley Wood, and yeah, they really need to understand what you're going to do there. So thank you very much for mentioning all of that, Zoe.
That's okay. If I can just mention as well, the application through that link that I've put in the chat, the applications are open now, so you can go on and have a look at the application form online. It is a live document that you can put a password into and come back to and things like that. But if you just go on for now and just have a look through the questions that are asked on there, a lot of the front part of it is governance information that we need, obviously all around eligibility for you to be able to apply for a grant. But then when you get into the questions that are specific around this particular grant, you'll see what sort of things they're looking for and the sort of the responses that you're going to need to put in. So you need to give it some thought, but obviously you've only got to the 31st of July. And as Aileen said, and as I've mentioned, there's always, with every grant that you apply for, no matter what it's for, showing that evidence of need and impact is always going to be a critical part of your application. So there needs to be a lot of thought around that. And then obviously making sure you've read through the criteria or watched through this video again, so that you're fully aware of every box that you've got to tick to make your application as strong as possible.
I will pick up on that as well. Before we speak, we go back to you, David. Sorry, we'll go to Jen, then David. Both of the community buildings that are present in this event, you are part of the wards where you can apply, and you are both in areas where there is a very strong evidence of need and of socio-economic challenges. So documenting that with statistics would really help your case as well. And Zoe, would there be a pertinence, if the project is quite big in terms of cost, in indicating in an application that it could be broken into two? So if the panel is struggling to fund everything, there could be a couple of phases. Is that something you think might help an application to clearly indicate that, or not really?
I think they're looking to fund works to take them to their completion. So
Okay.
it wouldn't be something that they are going to part for. No, I wouldn't imagine, based on the information that I've been given. It needs to be something that can be completed within this time frame. So and again, you know, it might just be that the application is actually a higher amount of money because of the particular facilities you're looking to put in. Maybe you want to put in a particular facility that supports being able to offer your services to disabled people, and some of that equipment can be quite costly. So it depends. Again, it doesn't have to be just that level of construction work as well. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Jen, I had quite a few questions on my list. Over to you.
Hi Zoe. So we've been doing a lot of investigation into bid writing. I've got a friend of mine who it was a bid writer in London that's kind of been helping us a little bit in this space. One of the things that we've been talking about doing is, because there is that guidance around you wanting to fund 5 projects as a minimum, but there is no maximum amount of money we can apply for. I think the approach we were looking at taking, and I kind of wanted to run this by you, was we were going to say, could we have, for example, £50,000, and that £50,000 would cover this, this, and this. If that's not possible, could we have as a minimum, say 25,000, and that would just cover this? Is that kind of an approach that would go down well? Kind of saying, we would ideally like you to fund this part of the project to be completed, but if you can't, could you fund this bit to be completed instead of all of it?
You could do that if you want. What I would advise there, Jen, is that you, as long as all of the parts of the project meet the criteria and priorities of the fund, that you apply for them all. But if you have broken them down into sort of bite-sized chunks, but they're all part of the wider solution to your problem, then, you know, if the panels, it's not unheard of that panels will offer partial awards. So if they feel that actually, you know, they don't feel like that's a really important part to be able to do what you're looking to do, but getting your roof fixed is, then, you know, they might just decide to, and they'll offer you a partial award in that case. But you never know. I think edge your bets. You don't ask, you don't get, is one of my life philosophies. So I'd ask for it all.
That's fine. Well, unfortunately, we can't ask for it all because you can't afford all of it. Your bid's not big enough. So what we're saying is, instead of the whole project is about 300,000. To be honest, and that's not going to happen. Not from one funder. It's not realistic. And there's specialist funds that can fund some parts of it as well that we're going to be looking at tapping into because it meets what the government need then. So we need to be quite strategic about who we're asking for what money from. What we were looking at from your perspective was that can we get both parts of the roof fixed and maybe then the ceilings. So maybe go in with, okay, as a minimum, we would like the roof bit that's leaking. Middle ground would be both roofs because the other one is not in a great shape. And then the top level would be, and then would you do the plastering, like put the ceilings in on the inside? So it almost comes up with, for example, if that was 75,000, it'd be like, could we have 75,000 to do both roofs and the ceilings? If you can't, okay, could you just do both roofs? If again that's too much because somebody else has a bigger need, could you at least do the leaking roof and split it down into that?
I think, Jen, just to be aware of time and other people, I think it's probably worth presenting your project as a whole thing. If you're talking 75, it feels on par with what this
That
can
was an
do.
example. That was just an
Yes,
example to get the idea across, not what we're actually
really
asking.
put something that you are likely to have, and that is not overwhelming, but sell it as one package because, as Zoe mentioned, the panel can go in and go back to you and say, actually, we'd like you to review. These conversations happen once you have submitted and panels have met. They will have a look in detail and say, okay, for this bit, we'd like you to review that. We'd like you to come back to us and answer this question. Could you give us more detail, or could you confirm all your quotes are independent from the trustees? There's no conflicts of interest. They will do all of that as part of the review. So
that's fine. That's not what my question was. My question was, do we split it down though? Because we can go in with one part, but we've been advised
Jen,
so far from other funding is to split it down and go
Jen,
two levels.
Jen, Zoe, go on.
No, sorry. No, yeah, just to answer that, I'd ask for the full amount. I think if you can add supporting documents that give a breakdown of what each of the things are if you wanted to. So when they're reviewing it, if they then choose to go, oh, okay, we'd like to fund part of this, but not all of it, they can make that decision then.
Okay.
But I think if you've got clear my one worry about what you've said is that obviously there's going to be more work that's needed. So I think what they're looking for is for this fund to be used to take projects to completion, for you to then be able to offer more access to the community. So I'd be considerate around that, about what you are, what the wider plan is. If fixing the roof is the first part of it, but actually you need to raise £150,000 more to do any other work, I don't think that's probably going to go in your favour as well. Whereas if fixing the roof means that you can open up that room and start offering more things within the community, that's what you will want to outline in your application. That's where the focus should be on. Okay.
Yeah. Cheers, Zoe. That's really helpful.
David.
It was just to back up your point to a certain extent, Aline, around support information. And one of the things I'm finding quite useful is to access the Solihull MBC local plan for specific areas and add those statistics, because that plan will identify what the council are looking for in those areas around community development, transport, environment, and all those issues. And there's some very interesting statistics in there that you can use then to back up your application around the indices of the area, what's been happening over the next 10 years in the area, and that means again that you're actually linking it into what's going to be happening. You're not just pulling things out of the air. It's actually saying, as a council, you're looking for this. Our community central church then can offer this side of it if we go for this as well. So I would recommend using that sort of thing. And the census, the national census for the area as well, is always a very good one to look at and pull out statistics on your own area. And especially, again, if you're looking to target certain groups in your area or certain people in the area, that will help. So utilize that information. It's dead easy to get hold of on the certainly the Solihull Council website will put you into the local plan, and the census, just ping it into your phone or whatever, and the latest one will come up as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I had another point as well, which is a question actually to both to Jen, Elaine, and to Paul. Have you guys started an application? Are you definitely considering applying, or is that just a... Okay, Paul?
Our trustees are reviewing our application on Monday, so it will be hopefully over to you, Eileen. How do you say your name? Elaine? Eileen? Eileen. It'll be over to you, Eileen, hopefully by the following Monday for your review before we formally submit it.
Yes, so we're looking to put an application in the next few days, and the work hasn't started, but we've already got the quotes.
Okay. If once you have drafted your application, if you want to send that to us for review, just let me know, send me an email, and between David and I and my colleagues, we'll look at someone to have a review of that.
Thank you.
But please don't send it the week before. Just because we all work part-time, so
yes.
And in terms of the application itself, Zoe, is there a Word document you have with those questions that we could send after this event? We could send to everyone who had registered, and we could make available, because people sometimes struggle to share information on, using the online process.
Yeah, I'll have a look if there's been one created for this one, and if not, I'll ask for one to be created and obviously share that across. But the actual application form that's online, as I said, I know you probably should, if you're sharing it out amongst different people who are adding in their little pieces, it can be difficult sometimes, but you can create a password on there and share that, and people can dip in and out of it as well. But I'll have a look. I'm not sure, because obviously there were quite tight timelines on this one for us to get it out. So
yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other specific questions? I mean, it's great to have had this session, because that's there's just 2 organizations, so we can answer your specific question without it being detrimental to too many people. But Paul, any questions you may have at this stage? You're on mute.
No, I don't have questions at the moment. No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else anyone would like to ask or share? Okay, well, if we have covered everything, thank you. Oh, Elaine, sorry, you've come off mute.
No, I've took my mute off, so I'm ready. I was just going to say it's been really helpful. A lot of the things we've already put into place and are looking at anyway, so that's just ticked a few boxes for us, really. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, well, if that's the case, thank you everyone for joining us today, and enjoy your weekend. We're all hoping for a bit of sun. We're also all hoping for an interesting result on Sunday, I'm sure.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.